Welcome back to the program. We now shift gears to the issue of insecurity in the north and its attendant potential crisis for the future. This is what we're going to be talking about because these children are still in captivity, women are still in captivity, others are still in captivity. What does all of this mean to the humanitarian situation in parts of the north or major parts of the north and across the country? That's why we've been joined on the program by the country representative in Nigeria of Médecins Sans Frontières, popularly called Doctors Without Borders, is joins us from our Abuja studios to bring perspective to what they are dealing with as an institution, as an NGO, as far as this humanitarian issue is concerned. We've been joined now by Dr. Simba Tirima. Dr. Tirima, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
We know that we've seen some documents. We know we've been reporting these issues of insecurity across parts of the north. But you are in a better position to, maybe in just a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, give us an overview of the kind of crisis of the now and the future the instability in the north is posing to the country and that region.
Let me start by saying that through 2023, MSF witnessed catastrophic levels of malnutrition and persistent outbreaks of preventable diseases in the Northwest. Now, this is 2023. We've been in the Northwest for a long, long time, more than a decade, so to speak, and we continue to witness these issues. But 2023 really stood out. Communities in the Northwest, including around 600,000 displaced people, are suffering due to extreme violence, deteriorating economic conditions, as everybody knows, as well as, of course, the issues of global climate change. The humanitarian crisis in the Northwest remains largely unrecognized, ignored, and forgotten. We hear harrowing stories from our caregivers who come to our facilities with very severely malnourished children after having walked for miles and hours in insecure places without access to primary healthcare facilities and money for transportation. And as you rightly mentioned, a total of 854 children died in our facilities, which was within 24 to 48 hours after admission.
Oh boy. So as it stands now, what in your view has to be done in terms of the level of urgency that is required to, because why I'm trying to pose the question in a particular way is because there are so many moving parts to make sure this is reversed. So my question primarily is, how can we begin to work, maybe by installment, to begin to reverse some of this trend? Because it's not going to be in one fell swoop. Is it about funding? Is it about trying to stem the insecurity? Does it have to do with everything to make sure that we don't have this level of casualty and humanitarian crisis on our hands?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that, humanitarian crises are really never solved through humanitarian interventions. And what do I mean by this? Humanitarian crises are often precipitated by several multifactorial issues, right? And the humanitarian sector really is not equipped to address those underlying issues. And so for us, the focus really is interventions that would save lives, interventions that would provide relief. And one of the issues, as we've mentioned over and over again, not only on this platform, but elsewhere, is that, look, we need more hands on deck, right, to provide that relief, to provide those life-saving interventions that would give a second chance to many of these kids who are dying.
Now, your statement on the humanitarian situation focuses on the Northwest. And here you say that your teams treated 171,465 malnourished children last year and admitted more than 32,000 into hospitals. Now, this number naturally causes one to ask that what's the response of government in terms of the provision of internally displaced persons camps in Nigeria's northwest and emergency provision of medical aid and perhaps makeshift hospitals to absorb some of the challenges that your organization is dealing with. Perhaps you can speak to that.
Yeah, I cannot speak specifically to what the government can or cannot do, really, because our role here is as much as possible to provide that relief. We are guests of the government who are here to, bring humanitarian buckets of relief to douse a fire that exists. The responsibility of addressing these underlying issues, the responsibility of expanding on what we do lies in the hands of the government, which is, in my view, is very capable of addressing some of these problems. And so, yes, we will continue to be guests of this government or the Nigerian people to do what it is that we do as humanitarian community. But again, the buck stops with the government. Yes, we would like to see more facilities absorbing some of these kids. Above all, actually, we also would like to see more humanitarian actors in this region to pick up the slack, because MSF is one organization, right, which is stretched very thin given the magnitude of the needs in these places. And so, yes, while there are some other actors, a few actors in the Northwest, we clearly would like to see more.
Let me ask that question in a different way. How many IDP camps are in a northwestern part of Nigeria that can take some of the challenges that you are helping to manage?
So my understanding of the situation is that most of the IDPs, most of the displaced people in the Northwest, and in actually many parts of this country, don't live in camps per se. They are in host communities. They are in, some of them occupy schools and places like this that offer some kind of shelter. And so I don't think there are formal camps that can address the issue probably the way we envisage it. And so I think, facilities, primary healthcare facilities, hospitals in LGAs would be useful to address some of these issues. By the way, MSF works in state facilities. Especially in the Northwest, we've not constructed our own hospitals and things like this. Occasionally we might, expand what we do by putting up a tent here and there, but we work in state facilities.
The beauty of this conversation is that we're having it because we believe that things can change, things can get better. So it's not a lost cause, as some people will think. I know that you said that last year, September, your teams in Zamfara State were forced to stop supporting inpatient malnutrition facility in Anka, and they were even temporarily evacuated from Zurmi because the fighting was getting dangerously close to the hospital. It might be a bit tricky for people maybe in this part of the country to understand what the typical day is like for MSF workers or humanitarian workers in that part of the country. So maybe one more time we can try to paint that picture for people so they can understand what it is you are dealing with and the dangers ahead if we don't try to put an end to this. So walk us through what a typical day is like, the kinds of children you have to attend to, malnutrition. Some of them die, by the way. So maybe paint a picture of what a typical day is like for MSF.
Yeah, first, well, let me, and I like how you put it across. There's always hope. We cannot give up. wallow in despair. No, things can change. But yes, we have challenges, serious challenges in terms of our operations in some of these places. And as MSF, we have a duty of care to our staff. And sometimes there are concerns of their own personal safety. And as you rightly mentioned, in Zamfara, in Anka, for example, we had to pull out of that area of physical presence and adapt and have other mechanisms of reaching to people, including sort of remote management. In Zurumi, as you mentioned, yes, we face serious security problems. So access to these folks that need help is a real challenge in light of the safety and security of our staff. I can't imagine, being in a facility and you hear gunfight, just close to you. Or I can't imagine plying those roads from one area to another, and you're not very sure what will happen to you. You can be kidnapped, or you can be shot at, or whatever the case might be. And humanitarianism really does not consist of sacrificing one life to save another. We take risks. We have appetite for risks because we really want to reach out to these very vulnerable people. But we have limits as well. And I cannot imagine what those people in need have to go through, walking through insecure areas, not knowing if they'll be kidnapped, not knowing if they will be assaulted. SGBV is a reality in these places. And so, yes, what we really hope for going forward is a change that allows for, yes, humanitarian relief to continue to be provided, but eventually to resolve these problems where we don't have to be dealing with these crises and emergencies in a longer term way.
Let's keep the point of view on your end, following up on what Kayode has said. What could be from your data that you have, the cost of help is what I call it, the casualties that humanitarian service providers themselves are exposed to? How many deaths, how many kidnapped, and all of that? Do you have that number? So people can actually acknowledge and, understand what this is really all about. This is not a joke.
Yeah, and I think, look, we don't have hard numbers in terms of, especially our colleagues who work in these places, who live in those places, who are also very, very exposed to the insecurity in the area. Of course, some of our staff have been kidnapped in the past, which has been very, very harrowing, on their way to coming to work, or when they are going about their lives in these places where they live. These things are real. While we've not had in Nigeria, at least for MSF, and especially in the Northwest, casualties coming from the insecurity situation, the risks are very real. And I'd say we're lucky that we've not had serious major incidents. But kidnappings have happened. Our staff, MSF staff have been kidnapped, on their way to work, or on their way out of work, or going about their businesses. So,
and that's really risk. And that's really concerning. Those providing care being exposed to danger as well. Your statement also appeals to the UN and donor agencies to pay more attention to the alarming situation, and that brings me to my next question, really, about the sentiment of NGOs in Nigeria's northeast now, not northwest, which is really very down to earth about their activities, complaints about them profiting off of the insurgency, and some of the time they're paying for accommodation for 10 years on, and how the insurgency in the northeast is being imported by foreigners. And this has gone on for some time. I wonder if that sentiment is also pervading Nigeria's northwest, such that there are fewer and fewer donor agencies that are willing to come on board and take off some of the stress, some of the burden of the humanitarian response that your organization is helping to manage?
Yeah, it is. It's really, really unfortunate that those accusations fly around, that people who are trying to help are also profiting from the crisis in of itself, especially in the Northeast. But let's focus, yes, and so, again, let's focus on the Northwest a little bit here. One of the concerns even in raising the profile of this crisis in the Northwest is that, look, what will happen to the Northeast if donors start coming to the Northwest, right? Is it a case of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? And here's the thing, and I think we must get this very clear, that we are not here to create a hierarchy of needs or victims of those people in need. People in need anywhere, whether that is driven by conflict or whether it's driven by whatever it is. If you have dying kids, that's a crisis, too. Now, we have very few actors in the Northwest, as you've rightly mentioned. And so we don't have, NGOs, INGOs on top of each other. I think in the Northeast, we have over 200. In the Northwest, maybe we have at most 4 or 5 who are acting there. And Northwest is huge. You're talking about at least maybe 7 states, right? So it's a large area. And so I don't think we hear those kinds of accusations where we are profiting, or the INGOs or these actors, humanitarian actors, are profiting from the issue that is at hand. No. And clearly, for MSF, and I can speak to us, to MSF in particular, because I represent MSF. No, we never ever think, that a crisis is something to piggyback on to profit in any way, shape, or form. No. If a child is dying, the humanity in us drives us to act. Not maybe some political agenda, not maybe some pecuniary interest or anything like that. So, yeah.
One of the scariest things I saw in that statement is that this year, that's 2024, might actually become the worst year yet in terms of humanitarian needs and suffering for people. I mean, when we started the year 2024, those were not the projections we all put in our, vision board. We didn't put, this year might be the worst, because we wanted to have a good year, better than 2023. But with this projection, as we wind down on this, I'd like you to speak to those who can do something. And I'm saying across board, as a matter of urgency, if there's something they were to do as of yesterday to ensure that 2024 is not the worst year that we're projecting it to be. And in this part of the world, we're very religious. People will say, I reject it. But this is the fact, this is the figure, this is the data. What is that thing they must be doing right now?
Yes. Clearly, we've seen an increased violence or events in this region, which continues to fuel the humanitarian crisis that we see, right? And that will exacerbate it, right? Climate change is here, right? What must we do to, at the very least, arrest the trends that we see, put them to a stop? We need more actors in this region to address malnutrition. One organization, cannot do that alone, right? Every hand needs to be on deck to ensure that children who need immediate treatment for malnutrition are treated for malnutrition. with the therapeutic ready to eat foods available, and facilities. And also, one of the things that we have that's a big problem is access. Our access to people in need, and those people having that access. We need to have safe corridors which can ensure that the needs of these very, very vulnerable people are addressed. And we can't wait until tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or sit here hoping and just merely praying. Yes, praying is important, but we must act. We must have more funding from international donors coming to the Northwest to address some of these emergency humanitarian needs. We cannot wait. I mean, the clock is ticking. And as I speak now to you, there is a child who is dying unnecessarily. These children ought to not die just like that. I have observed this happen when I visited some of our facilities, and I can tell you, it is one of the most heart-wrenching experiences. If I can feel that way, how do the parents of these children feel when they see maybe they are hopeful? You know, that child they were putting all their hope on, dying just like that.
All right, Doctor.
We must invoke humanity.
Doctor, as we begin to wrap up, it's sad to be left to deal with effects when the causes can be stopped. But that's the position you found yourselves as an organization, and you've been doing this for years. Raising this alarm means that the urgency is as urgent, allow me to say that, as yesterday. If the help doesn't come as you expect, what are the options left for you? Without trying to be pessimistic.
No, I have to be pessimistic, I'm sorry. If the help does not come, kids will continue to die. This is the reality. If we don't intervene, you know, the numbers that we give you, if probably we were not present at that moment, right, that 854 number would have been worse. And these are the ones that we've been able to capture. This is our clinical data. We really have no idea what is happening out there. So we have no option but to act, and to act now.
Dr. Simba Tirima is the country representative in Nigeria, Medicine Sans Frontier, known as Doctors Without Borders. Thank you so much for coming on the program, and we wish you the very best and hope that the people you raise the alarm to, both the government of Nigeria and international organizations, will respond so that these children will stop dying. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, it's as clear as it's being said, but we'll shift gears now to something a little different when it comes to artificial intelligence. It's getting even scarier in that particular space. You would like to find out what I'm talking about when we come back after this break. Join us again.